All right, team players. Today we're going to be talking about the New York Football Giants today. Bob, what a comeback. What a year last year of basically seeing, hey, the game plan of drafting a running back when he's amazing and he's healthy, it works. And I love to see that the Giants go. And I've always been a Saquon fan. Thankfully, I've always been finishing too good in my leagues to ever have a chance to draft him until last year when no one believed in him. Mm-hmm. And now I'm not going to have a chance again because I won the damn league. So that being said, Saquon Barkley, Bob, I believe he's the story of all of it. Obviously, all the love to the coach. Got guys on fire. He brought the whole thing back. He took what Daniel Jones' limitations were and he took them to the next level. He didn't look at them as obstacles that were insurmountable. He looked at the assets he had and how he can make them better. He treated it like he was a Marine. What do we have? Not what are we lacking, and how can we make things work? That being said, Dean was great in coming together at the end of the games. They played one of the absolute favorite games when they went to London and they were losing to the Packers. And all morning long, you just saw these updates. Giants creeping back in it. And then, boom, Aaron Rodgers is losing. How much do you love that? Because I know I love that. So this team has so many good things going for it. And in some ways, they just feel like they outlast you. You know, it felt like that's how they beat Minnesota in the playoffs. You know, it wasn't like it was anything super shiny. They were just, we're going to just stand in here and bring it and wear you down. And guess what? We're good at it. And I really like this team. There's a lot I like about it. And, you know, I'm really excited. This is my biggest question mark team in terms of prove it with the plexiglass theory. Because Giants step forward. Or 5 years previous to that, one of the worst teams in the NFL, them in Jacksonville. Make the playoffs. Both of them did. Right. Are either of them going to be able to maintain the momentum? And, you know, it's an interesting question. These guys got a hard schedule. They haven't really radically changed the team from last year.
No, they haven't.
Unless, of course, you count the addition of the receivers turning on in December as an addition, which you can make an argument for. I'm not opposed to that because no one thought that Hodgins was being part of the team at the beginning of the year, and he basically took them into the playoffs. So I look at this, Bob, lots of fascination. I love where they're at, and I love their coach. So the whole question is, are they going to be able to maintain? Are they going to be able to improve upon themselves? Probably need to come second in the division this year to make the playoffs, just because of how soft some of the other schedules are, particularly the NFC West. And I think it's going to have to be something interesting. So I look at this and go, they got a chance. There's no reason they couldn't, but I think they're going to finish second in the division when we do the math of wild card slots to make it happen.
So with the Giants, it's a team that I was really, really interested in last year. They ranked, I believe it was 5th best or higher in rushing and 5th worst in terms of passing yards. And so when you really look at your statement earlier about Daboll saying, you know, focusing in on what the team really does well and limiting the limitations that your players have. We all know that Saquon Barkley is an elite level, legendary style talent. We all know that Daniel Jones is not, at least at this point in time in his career. And so,
yeah, you have to give the money to the quarterback.
So what we saw last year was a combination of Daniel Jones learning. And Daboll was patient with Daniel Jones. There are many times where it looked like Daniel Jones was out of his element to some degree, but then Daboll and him reined it back in. They brought it back together. Daniel Jones is a dual threat quarterback, despite anybody else maybe saying otherwise. He can run. He accumulated over 700 yards rushing last year, 7 touchdowns. He can pass the ball. Can he pass the ball as well as they want him to is the big question that we talked about when we did the Giants in review. And the answer is not really. So his limitations, not only is he limited physically by what he can do, but he was also limited in his lack of weapons and options last year. There was a lot of injuries when it came to the New York Giants. Now, this year, with a potentially fully healthy cast, you have Darius Slayton, you have Wan'Dale Robinson, you have Paris Campbell. They went out and they got Darren Waller. I mean, when you look at it on paper, it's nothing to say wow about, because all of these players have had injury problems in the past, coming from a team that is oft injured, as we discussed in the LA Chargers video. The Giants seem to have issues with strength and conditioning a lot. A lot of their players get hurt. Last year, thankfully, Saquon did not. Now, when you take a look at this roster of wide receivers and tight ends, they have their fair share of injury history problems, and you would hope that that doesn't creep into the Giants for this year, because it's a really talented group of players. Slayton doesn't have name brand recognition, but he is a talented wide receiver. Wan'Dale Robinson showed flashes last year when he was healthy. Paris Campbell has been good in situations, and Darren Waller, when he plays, is phenomenal. And so, not to mention that they also have Daniel Bellinger. So you look at this team and you say, okay, even with limitations for both injuries and for player talent, this team could rattle off points. This team can move the ball down the field because they have Saquon Barkley. Now, Matt Breida is not really anything that I'm excited about. Is he functional as a second running back? Absolutely. But are you going to win significant games with Breida if Saquon Barkley goes down, or if Saquon does not sign? I don't see him not signing, but these things can linger on. And if Saquon doesn't get the conditioning that he needs over the summer, this could be a potential thing that could, if he signs, then he plays the first or second week and he gets hurt. This could be something that the Giants should be concerned about as we go through the season, because as you look at the Giants' schedule, we're starting off with not a cupcake. We're starting off with Dallas.
Yep, very big indicator.
Then we're moving to Arizona, and then we play at San Francisco. You could potentially be seeing the Giants at 1-2 to start the season. Then they go to Seattle. Seattle's going to be a tough. Then they come back home to play Seattle.
Yeah, so they play all of the West, and then they play the AFC East.
So by the time you get into this schedule, and the reason I bring this up is because last year they started off really hot, and and then they had a losing streak with a tie with the Commanders in the middle of that season, and we were like, well, what happened to the Giants here? Because everybody was pretty much healthy except for a couple of guys, and you're like, well, what just happened here? And the reason I bring that up is because when you look into the middle of this schedule, after you get past week 6, you're looking at the Commanders, Jets, Raiders, Cowboys again, Commanders, then the Pats, and then you got your bye, and then you're looking at Green Bay, you're looking at New Orleans, who's probably going to win that division. Then you end with 2 out of your last 3 weeks in Philadelphia. And if you have not accumulated enough wins to make the playoffs by week 15, you aren't getting in.
Well, I want to point something out with that. So there's 2 thoughts whenever you go through the schedule exercises. In general, when it looks like a rough schedule, it probably means that you're not the stronger team. But the other thing that the NFL is telling you, and this might come off across a little contradictory, is they want the end of the year to matter immensely, especially the final week of the year. That's the NFL basically telling you they think the Giants and the Eagles are going to be on the same level. And the Eagles are probably winning this division. So therefore, that's the NFL telling you that they think the Giants are going to be right there ahead of the Cowboys, if not with them. And the thing I love about how this roster is created, there's a thing I wish they did different, but I love that they basically said, we have 13 different receivers that would be a B or lower, and we're just going to rattle through them. But we're going to have 2 tight ends. Granted, Waller gets hurt a lot, but we'll play 2 tight end sets as the run around the rotation goes, and we're going to lean into running it. Like, we already know we're good at it. So we're going to get a second tight end who's a little bit more of a pass catcher. Because Bellinger is probably the most balanced tight end in the NFL. Just people don't know about him because he gets hurt too much. He's a very good player. And I'm not trying to criticize him by saying he's balanced. But the simple fact is it opens up running holes. They have 2 first-round left tackles, and their line is solid. Like, they have fixed their line. That was their biggest problem during the headache time. And I love the fact that they have come around and gotten this. The thing that I don't like about this draft and what this team did in the offseason is exactly what you're hitting on before. They don't have a backup to Saquon. you can't lean into the running game with an injury history of Saquon and just think everything's going to be okay. You can't ignore the lifetime experience of everyone gets hurt in New York. If you want to bank around a running game, cool.
Yeah.
Use your third round pick on a running back. You know, I'm not saying use your first or second because I think the Deontay Banks signing is great. I think it'll really help them. Can never fault with a Big Ten running or Big Ten center. Can't fault either one of those picks. And quite frankly, you can make the argument that Hyatt was way too valued whenever they snagged him up there in the third round. I get all of that. You either need to then trade into the fourth round and get a running back or trade up because Breida is just not the answer. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not going to – what is this team if Saquon goes down?
Well,
Daniel Jones who can't really throw the ball, no elite receiver, and hoping Waller stays healthy. This entire team is Saquon Barkley.
Here's what I want to say, and it's important that this is said because we talk about it a lot, and a lot of other outlets do talk about this too. Is matching strengths to weaknesses, and you know, you ultimately to win a game, your strength has to outshine the strongest strength of the other team. And so when we're looking at Philadelphia, particularly their defense and what they do really well, it's stopping the run. At least we hope it is because
interior
of
pressure, still
their interior pressure and their edge and their edge rushers. What do the Giants do really well? It is running. Now, when you look at what the Giants did last year in terms of their schedule, did they have the chance to beat Philadelphia? They lost to Philadelphia twice. And that is even with, you know, healthy players. And so I look at what the Giants do really well, and we know, and this is the same thing that's true about Atlanta, is that they run the ball extremely well. But when you force them to make it into a passing game, Daniel Jones as a passer is always good enough, but not anything to shine out. So if you are facing a team with a better passing quarterback and your weakness on defense is the secondary, and you say, okay, my strength, you have to now beat my strength. Well, Philadelphia doesn't have to run the ball to win the game. They can throw the ball to win the game. And if you look at what we're looking at, and I hate to say this because the Giants were one of my favorite teams last year going into the postseason. I was really excited for the Giants. When I look at their schedule, I'm seeing prolific passers to a degree on their schedule. And yes, the Banks, going out and getting Banks is super important. And going out and getting the players that they did is absolutely important. But were they, we ask ourselves, is the signing of Amani good enough? Is the signing of Bobby McClain good enough? And I don't think it is. And the issue that we are going to see for the New York Giants is this lack of depth, is that if a player goes down, because arguably in New York they always do we have enough? They're always seeming to scramble for players. And fans might not believe that that's true, but from an outside perspective, we often are seeing, if we're playing fantasy football or if we're thinking about, you know, who's going to play for the New York Giants, it always feels like guys are not either performing up to their capabilities or they're always dealing with a nagging or lingering injury. And if you're playing down the stretch with Philadelphia, and I'm going to go back to the schedule again because it's really important, is that
they need Thibodeau to become a top 5 in the league sack man.
You can win versus Green Bay at home. You can beat New England because your strength.
I think they can beat the Cowboys.
Comes out. I think you beat the Cowboys at least once. You got to hit these at the right times. And I think if I'm looking at who has the better offense, Dallas or Giants, I feel that with Tony Pollard being the main guy in Dallas now, and them finally building whatever they can instead of trying to slip in Zeke every now and then, I think that Dallas is going to be more of a headache for the Giants. I think their offense is perfectly capable of matching up with Dallas's defense, but this division is so hard, and to say that the Giants are going to come out in a playoff spot, you never know where this division is going to go, and that's a matter of a fact. You really never know what's going to happen here. But I think if you're looking at their line for wins losses and saying, okay, the line is 7.5, are they going to get to 7.5? And unfortunately, I just don't see it. The only wins I see are Arizona, Raiders, and Commanders. And even then,
well, I think you what that's
like I'm saying, visually, I can see that team. It's not even going to be close with these teams. With the other teams, they're going to be matches. They're going to be tough games. They have the chance to win them. But if something flips the script in the wrong way for them, we could easily see a downturn in their season. But are they good enough? Is Daboll a good enough coach to be successful? Absolutely.
Well, see, that's the thing. He's a much better coach than McCarthy. That's why I think they're beating the Cowboys. I think they're beating the Cowboys in Jerry World Week 1. I hate that the NBC always makes that the Week 1 matchup. It feels like it's like 7 of the last 10 years. But I really like it. And I think that Daboll can beat them. And then it starts the whole chaos show of Dallas imploding. And who doesn't love that storyline? So
yeah,
with that being said, Giants fans, everyone who's still with us here, please subscribe if you haven't already here at Local Football Flavor, and we'll be with you for the next episode.